Hello there, everybody. This is Alex from Hardcoin Guys, bringing my guide for God of War 2 on Titan difficulty. Today, we are doing Part 17, Temple of the Fates. And this one's going to be a little bit more bigger than the other couple I think we've had. And it's going to contain not only, like, just 2 boss fights, but, like, technically 3 to 4. Kind of, if you consider the different phases and the different, the double fates, basically, if you consider them as their own individual fight. But yes, we're going to be fighting the Kraken, and before that, we're going to be fighting the Unknown Soldier. And after that, we're heading right into the Temple of Fates. And we've pretty much made it. We're practically in endgame at this point. We still have a couple more parts to go. So yes, let's just enjoy ourselves now until I see this room, and then I remembered exactly where the hell we're at, and now I hate myself. So I have always kind of despised very particular parts of God of War 2, and this is definitely one of them. Not because like it's hard or it's really that bad. It's just annoying. It's mostly like some of these puzzles just bother me, because I just hate doing them. And another thing too is like I kind of forget where these puzzles take place at, and I always kind of forget, how far in the game they specifically are. Like the Raven area, for example, is another part I'm not a big fan of, but it seems to be a little bit later in the game than I thought it would have been. So yeah, this puzzle is, at first it's a bit confusing, but really it's actually a lot more simple than it actually looks. Because it seems very convoluted, but it's really, strangely enough, just like almost like a 2 to 3 step process type deal anyway. So, first thing you gotta do, of course, is to get the pillar. And you want to align the pillar right between these 2 square, things on the top of the ceiling there. And you want to have it like between those, so that way when you go to push the elevator back up, it's not going to fall off, and then, yeah. You can figure it out from there, pretty much. It's just trying to remember whether or not you're supposed to bring it with you or not. That's usually the thing, but luckily I remembered and didn't forget, so, yeah. And, of course, you have these guys to fight. And they're always pretty fun to fight for the most part. I never really have too much trouble with them, and I do actually enjoy fighting them, mainly because, like, I tend to enjoy enemies that can be not manipulated, but just looped, juggled, that type of thing. I kind of enjoy that feeling. I guess you could say like I enjoy the power, I guess you could say. I'm coursing my fantasies through Kratos. Fantasies as in like my power fantasies of being like I'm so strong and tough, and I wield the blades of chaos and I can destroy these monsters. I don't know. I'm kind of running out of commentary at this point because I've just been doing videos almost for the past couple of days, and we're getting so dang close to the end of the game, and there's really nothing to really talk about right now anyway. So yeah, we're just so damn close. We're just inching our way there, and we still have yet a lot of time to go through. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm thinking that this is a different area. I don't get it. But yeah, the main door that we see, that's the one that's gonna have the first boss fight, which I do think that part is pretty cool. I do think the Kraken boss, and I do think that the soldier fight beforehand are pretty fun to do. But now that we can actually finally do something, I guess I could probably actually talk about how this fight goes. So, this guy is very, very quick and very nimble, and something that I tend to do quite often, not just because I want to, but pretty much out of habit, and I'm going to have to do it, is parry. And that's something that you'll notice that you pretty much almost kind of have to do, and you don't really have a lot of time in between hits, and he doesn't have a very clear pattern of hitting either. So really, the best advice I can give you is just whenever you get an opening, go for like a couple of hits and then block right after and then go straight for a parry. That way you can at least get something going. And while you're in parry, you're invincible, which is actually kind of both nice and an odd design choice, because like, you think they would make it to where you couldn't be, but then again, I don't know. And, you know, at this point in time, too, you can also use Rage as well, which something I kind of forgot that I probably could have done. But in hindsight, you could use Rage, because you're going to get your Rage back automatically anyway. So, if you got the Rage to use it, yeah, go right ahead and use it. But now we have an upgraded version of the Rage, which is actually going to come in handy, especially toward the final boss fight. Not so much for the fates themselves, necessarily, but definitely at the final boss. Alright, so now we have, once again, another puzzle boss, and this one's, he may be really easy for a boss, but at first it might come off a bit confusing, and I'll try to lead you guys through it. So, pretty much, you know, you just use Rage Mode to knock the tentacle away. Rage Mode is your best option for that, and then you put the dead body on the button, on the left button there, and then of course, you know, you fly up to his head and you attack that little red glowing thing that's on his head. He usually doesn't attack very much. I would recommend using L1 in circle if you're going for some aerial attacks, because you pretty much kind of have to. You could use your Bane, but I always just kind of go for, you know, just the blade attacks themselves. And then after that, you know, this is basically just phase 1. There's like 3 phases, and it may be not, you know, not much of a super difficult boss, only because, you know, he doesn't really do a lot, realistically speaking. So that's just what I feel like just kind of makes it a lot more easier. And after that, this is where things get just a tad bit confusing. But right now, what you want to do is you want to attack the left tentacle in Rage Mode once again. You don't want to use all of your Rage Mode, just enough to get it, you know, knocked out of the way. And I think if you attack his tentacle without Rage, I think he works like he does with Typhoon's fingers, where you should get a lot of Rage back, I believe, but I could be wrong on that one. I'm not sure. For a guy that does guides, I know. But I only know what I know. I can't, you know, that's just how it is. So, after that, you know, you pretty much do the same thing again. Like I said, you know, L1 circle works wonders. It's a pretty fast attacking move, and it, you know, you can take him out in like a couple of tries there, which is nice. And that's pretty much just phase 2. And one of the coolest moments in all God of War 2 is when the music just picks up right there. I don't know if you guys were able to hear it or not. I'm not really sure. I mean, you should be able to hear something, but I don't know if you can hear the music exactly. But yeah, alright, so now things are going to get a little bit more interesting. So he's going to actually start flying around, but the best place to stay away from is actually toward the middle where his chest is at. And the idea here is to essentially knock off both tentacles. And that's where this boss becomes relatively, I wouldn't say pathetic, but just pretty simple. If you don't know the puzzle, that could potentially make the fight hard. But when you actually know what the puzzle is, after that, it's really not a bad fight, because you probably won't even take a hit. Maybe you might get hit by the acid. Maybe. But even then, you know, if he's flying around with his arms, both arms, just stay in the middle, you'll be alright. Just stay close to him, I mean. And if he's flailing around one arm, then go to the other one, you know? So, it works out pretty well. It's a neat boss. It's just that it is a bit disappointing that it's just easy. Too easy, actually. That's the thing, because, like, after all these fights we've gone through, like, both him and the soldier, like, even the soldier was just, like, a tad bit harder, I would say. So, now we're finally in the actual Temple of the Fates, and the first thing we need to do is we need to destroy that time crystal thing, so that way we can, well, get out of, you know, being stopped through time. And there are a couple chests to the left, and the only way to get those chests is by doing this, where you essentially just, you know, lock the mechanism in place, and then now we can eventually finally steer it. But you have to get it, like, I think you get it like centered around, and then you have to think. No, I guess it just, okay. I thought it was gonna move back to normal, but I forgot that it didn't do that. So never mind. Disregard was good. I was about to say, like, you had to slow down time to get this thing to fit in, but that's not actually the case. So yeah, I was just checking back there to see if there's anything back there, and I kind of gave up. Also, what I'm doing right there, I don't know how many people might know about it, but there's a thing you can do when you're swimming in water. If you don't go to the surface, and you go, like, if you just tap square right underneath the surface, and you know, you could essentially make it to where the camera is above the water, so that way you can see where you're going, or have a better advantage of seeing things a lot more clear. And you can still dive, or not dive, but you can still, like, you know, dash or whatever it's called. Luckily for me, though, even though I missed that first jump, I did actually make this fully, which is nice. The thing gave me plenty of time to actually make it there, which is great, actually. Well, I'm gonna scroll up here so I can see where we're at in terms of video. So we should be about, yeah, like halfway through the video by now. And strangely enough, I'm starting to wonder if I'm getting old or something, because I tend to forget a lot of these areas just are not as big as I remember them being. Also, when it comes to this part, I don't know if it matters if you do the bell first or if you do the other one first. I think you might have to do the bell first just because of the RAM doesn't last long enough to, you know, to... what am I trying to say? The words are not coming to me, but basically, I always go for the bell first because I feel like it lasts longer while it's ringing than the RAM does with the other bell. Even though you're just hitting a bell with it, so it probably shouldn't ring the same amount of times, but I don't know. Just as a safety precaution, I guess that's something you can kind of keep in mind. Is maybe go for the bell first, and then after that, go for the RAM. So, yeah, fun, you know, that's always a fun puzzle, but I could have sworn it was a bigger puzzle than it really was. I could have sworn there was like another room with it, but no, there never really was. And this is just not like a case of like a Mandela effect or anything. This is just me straight up just misremembering things. Mainly because like I've never really played God of War to completion that often, as strange as that sounds. It's usually like God of War 1 that I usually go through in like a full succession, and for the most part, know like the back of my hand. But anyway, that's enough talk about God of War. Now we gotta talk about Killing Fates. So, the first fight with the first Fate, which I don't remember her name. I want to say maybe this one's Atropos. I think Clotho was the last one we had to fight, and I think the other one is, or this is at least Lachesis. It probably is. I think this is, yeah, I think this is Lachesis. So, we'll just call her the first sister. How about that? So you can block off almost every single one of her attacks. Whenever she goes to throw a projectile at you, and she'll give a clear indication that she's going to do it. You see that wind up right there? That's her winding up to throw a projectile. And continuously try to, you know, go back and forth with her. And this is kind of good training for Zeus, even though he doesn't really do a back and forth thing with you. But he will be throwing a lot of projectiles at you. So this is pretty good training to get kind of used to how projectiles work. Yeah, you can even parry that. You can't necessarily block every single attack, but you can at the very most parry almost every single attack. So, and she does a 3-hit swipe when she does that. You can actually, I believe you can block that, but I always go for a parry just in case. And, you know, when she goes for that slam thing, of course, you know, she has a clear indicator that she's going to do it. And after she slams with it, you can actually roll out of the way and then roll back into it and take no damage while you're in that fire. Excuse me for a sec. Okay, sorry, I had to clear my throat a bit. So, when it comes to that triple trifecta attack thing that she does with those projectiles, you can parry those back too, and I would recommend doing that as well. It's just getting the timing on that is the hardest thing. If you can get that timing down, for the most part, you should be fine. This fight is all about mostly just blocking and parrying. That's pretty much about it. And then every once in a while, when you get a chance, getting some nice, you know, nice hits in. Now, this is like the third phase of her phase, but, and you'll know the phases are changing whenever, you know, they start to drop orbs. And the idea here is you want to hang on to the walls and then, you know, jump up to her if you can get, you know, if you can get to her, basically. And that's the idea. You want to get up to her, and then I would recommend doing at least maybe some triangle attacks. And the good thing is, she doesn't really do attacks while she's in the air and she's getting hit, so you could always maybe try doing like a cyclone or something, you know. Go for some L1 squares or some L1 circles or whatever. She probably will dodge, but at the very least, you can at least get some nice, you know, combo hits going. And then after she finally just gives up on that crap, she'll eventually come back. She should come back down. Or maybe I think I'll probably think of the next fight. But yeah, When it comes to dodging those projectiles, I always kind of wait to start jumping when she's like right on the cusp of throwing the projectile. That's usually when I decide to do it, and I'm always mashing R1, trying to jump from one one grapple to the other. And usually the grapples that I try to go after her for are the ones that are usually on the edge. And I always wait to start trying to go for her whenever the floor is cleared of her time thing ability. But yeah, that next phase, it's a bit irritating, but it's not too hard compared to her other phases that she had in the beginning. And now we're finally in phase 2 of the main boss fight here. And this one's a bit strange because sometimes the second sister sometimes doesn't actually come to the sword. And usually what I did right there was I just used the Bane to, try to get her to come over here and try to fight me. And whenever she's going to the sword, that's when you want to run up and do some Atlas Quake, because you will start getting magic back from actually killing these enemies. So it's a good chance as any to start using Atlas. And this right here can be parried and can be thrown back. But if you're going to parry that, I would recommend standing on the very edge of the sword. That way, it doesn't have some weird depth thing that it just, screws you over with. And whenever she's down here and close to the sword and trying to break it, that's a good time as any to start using Atlas. So, and the rest of it's pretty straightforward because it's mostly just like these little buggers that just want to try to attack you. But they're kind of like neither here nor there. If they get annoying, you can just parry their attacks or just throw one at another or whatever you want to do. Or even Atlas Quake, because by now you should have at least plenty of magic if you've, been getting all the chests and stuff. Yeah, somehow I got that parried. I don't know. I don't even know how. Now the zap attack, I don't think you can parry it. So I don't really mess with it too much. Speaking of which, this is actually a pretty damn easy fight in comparison to the rest of the stuff we have to do, because she goes down pretty quick, especially with the Atlas Quake level 3 going on. And not only that, but the sword has so much durability, it's insane. Alright, next phase. And I'm going to apologize right now because I did kind of forget how to do this phase particularly. And the trick is you want to knock down the first sister and then use her time slow ability when she's down on the ground, and then attack the second sister while she's inside of a door. And while the other one's inside of a door, she's going to be using these, like laser attacks and be throwing out other attacks and stuff. If she's getting annoying, just hit her. But we can't do much right now anyway, because we have to take down the first sister at the very least. But she pretty much just resorts to like her beginning first phase, and every once in a while she might use attacks from like her other phase. But for the most part, she's going to be relying on like phase 1 for this. And again, if you do get hit by those are very dangerous because you do take quite a bit of damage from that and you don't want to get hit. You want to try to parry those as best as you can. So, yeah, just do what you pretty much did, but now with the added effect of having to deal with a second sister, who, by the way, again, like I said, if she gets annoying, then just attack her. Just attack her while she's in the door if she's just trying to, piss you off. So this is where I remembered. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You're supposed to slow down time and then attack the second one. And you'll know you're doing a pretty good job when you're just, when she falls down and you feel like you're wailing on her. Which always feels nice, by the way. It always just feels great, taking them down. They're a pretty fun fight, honestly. So, yeah, that's first mirror down. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Although, it's funny I say it's easy, but then, like, this is the type of fight that you could potentially die a lot and struggle a lot with, too. So, it's really just a matter of, like, timing and then just, learning the patterns and stuff, and then from there, it's pretty easy. Granted, yes, you can say that about mostly any game. And, God of War especially. Especially on very specific sections of the game. I should say, there are exceptions, I should say that. Like, there's the translator section, there's the next section with the gauntlet coming up later, the Loom Chamber stuff and all that. Not necessarily the third sister herself, but just like, all that jazz, the puzzling and the gauntlet stuff and what have you. And, yeah, those are very, very specific exceptions to that rule, because they're not really timing based. They're just, you really just have to know what the hell to do in those sections. So, alright. Second door, once again, just do the same thing as you did last time, and just wail on her. I always go for, like, just the big meteor hit combos, just to make things just a tad bit faster, because, you know, for the most part, your triple triangle combo, I would assume, probably comes out faster than your regular square combo, but like I've said before, it just has like that little bit of a slight lag at the end or during the animation. Even though like time does kind of slightly slow down, you can still get hit during it. And it's just like, you don't want that to happen. So use it, you know, whenever you know that you can. So this last part of the fight is really, really simple, because what ends up happening is she just stands in front of the last mirror to try to protect it, and they don't really do much. You know, the first sister doesn't really do very many attacks to really have to watch out for. So you just basically just wail on her at the very end, and if you don't mess up this quick time event, then you're good. And there's that. You know, destroy the door, and then those fates are gone. So that's going to be it for this episode. Hope you all enjoyed. Oh yeah, there's chest, of course. And then with that being said, I will see you all next time for the next part, where we're going to be doing, I think it's going to be called the Loom Chamber. Yes, I'm going to call the entire next one the Loom Chamber. Do I upgrade anything? Yes, upgrade Medusa. I mean, Urael. So there's that. So that's level 3. I would highly recommend upgrading that, by the way, to max. So anyway, take care, everybody.